one day, honestly, I just stayed up all night till 4 in the morning, and I wrote out a curriculum for Bethel Business and Community Development Center, much as it is today. Hi, my name is Yaholnitsky. I came to Lesotho in July 1987 with World University Services of Canada. I was a teacher at Bethel High School, and I fell into just doing a lot of the things that we're doing now. There was a workshop, gardens, fields. It was a very good, conducive environment for a person to keep busy. And one of the interesting things that we did somewhere along the way, a couple of years after I got there, is we made some solar cookers, and they worked wonderfully. And really, solar cooking is something that's become a major part of my life. And I think I was at the 4th year at Bethel High School, and out of the blue, I got a letter from Ralph Diaz, the head of UNICEF, asking me to come and see him because he'd heard about the work we were doing on solar cooking. And so I went to see him, and he told me that UNICEF wanted to support this work. So I went back to Bethel High School, and I thought about it for a minute, and somewhere I got the idea that solar cooking was fine, but it was short of what was needed, and I got the idea for a technical school where we would address a much broader range of issues, STEM issues, as they say now: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also business. And one day, honestly, I just stayed up all night till 4 in the morning, and I wrote out a curriculum for Bethel Business and Community Development Center, much as it is today. So following contact with UNICEF, Ralph Diaz asked me to write a concept paper. So I did this, it was a long 20-30 page document which I outlined my vision for a technical and commercial school, and he loved the idea. I remember one of the things that he said was that kids need to learn to earn. And the situation in Lesotho was that a lot of children were entering school at the primary level, but very few were graduating and going on. So you had a situation where an enormous number of young people were leaving school without any technical survival skills. So this is what we wanted to address. So to start a school, we needed a site. So we went to Bishop Sebastian Korai in Mahalisuk, and he saw the concept paper, which was quite thorough. And we asked him for a strip of 4 hectares of land, which was abandoned and really lifeless and empty at the time on the east side of Bethel Mission. And he very fortunately gave us the go-ahead, and we started. So I took a few students from Bethel High School as staff, and in January 1st, 1993, we started building Bethel Business and Community Development Center. In June, we managed to find 10 students who would complete their first 2 years of studies. And what UNICEF did, they gave us core funding for 4 years. It was from 1993 to 1996. When I was at Bethel High School, I learned about permaculture. I picked up 2 books, Permaculture 1 and Permaculture 2, at the Peace Corps Library. And that was a real revolution for me. The concept of design, building integrated systems. What design is putting together very compact patterns with lots of positive connections for what's termed now the nexus, food, energy, and water. And as luck would have it, the founder of permaculture, Bill Mollison, he came to South Africa in 1997. And I actually had an opportunity to go to Vicksburg and take a permaculture design certificate course in 1997. So design thinking has permeated the emergence of Bethel BBCDC right from the beginning. I mean, it enabled us to locate things and put the right shapes in the right locations for the maximum impact right from the beginning. And of course, this takes a little bit of time. Lesotho has a particularly difficult climate. It vacillates between long periods of drought, and occasionally you get something which I term a monsoon. We can get very, very heavy rains, clustered and episodic, scattered around any time of the year. So the stream flow characteristics related to that are very chaotic. So you have high stream flows of debris, sand, gravel, and rocks, and then during long dry periods, the streams dry up entirely. So I think at some point in '95 or something, I got some books on rural water supply, and one of them mentioned sand dams. And sand dams have had a long history in Africa. They have been built for thousands of years by people to collect sand in ephemeral river streams. So this looked like a pretty good idea to me. Sand is only deceptively solid. Because of its angularity, it can hold 30% of water by volume. So I think in '96 or '97, we built our first sand dam in the stream next to the campus, and it worked perfectly. It filled with sand, it increased our stream water flow, and it recharged the groundwater. And then several years later, we raised it slightly, we reinforced the dam wall, and then starting in, I think, in 2017, we added 2 more sand dams next to the BBCDC campus primarily for irrigation. And this is what tweaked the interest of the FAO, and now more recently the World Food Program. The great thing about sand dams is that they're inexpensive to build. Each one requires maybe 30 or 40 bags of cement. Rocks and sand are located in situ. Water's there. All the materials that we need to build a sand dam are locally available. And this is also coupled to the fact that the Basotho have hundreds of years of expert ability as a skill in the village working with stones. Basotho have been building kraals, houses, and structures with stones, and are adept, skilled, and very capable stone workers. So this is an ideal solution appropriate for the context. The term core funding is one which an institution or an agency has dependable funding. So our initial agreement with UNICEF was from 1993 to 96, but as it turned out, UNICEF came under budgetary pressure because of reforms being pressed on them, and we actually received no funding in 1996 from UNICEF. So that was actually our first experience of financial restructuring, and we just had to make do with the resources that we had. Early in the history of BBCDC, we had a severe drought in 1994. It was a typical South African drought where there was a complete spring rain failure, and we didn't get rain that year until February 1995. So As a poverty alleviation exercise, we began construction of a road from Bethel to Mount Morosi in cooperation with the World Food Program and the Food Management Unit. And this road construction project lasted for 5 years until 1999. In 1999, we actually managed to build a stone ford across the Senku River, which served and gave us seasonal crossing from 1999 to 2017. You know, the emergence of BBCDC is bound very much with the history of Lesotho and its struggle for emergence. And around 95 or 96, Sichaba consultants with funding from Ireland Aid undertook a massive poverty study in Lesotho. This was commissioned by the government of Lesotho, and this huge 400-page book came out mapping poverty in Lesotho. And the main finding was that people in the lowlands were really not so badly off, but that the greatest levels of absolute poverty were in the remote districts of Mogotlong, Katjesnek, and Mohalisok. This is where the worst poverty was. And at that time, Ireland Aid had something like 30 or 40 technical assistants working in the government of Lesotho. So they made a decision to wrap that up, and they diverted all of the funds saved from keeping all of these technical assistants in Maseru, and they were looking for partners, particularly in these target areas. And BBCDC came up in the discussions, and again, through writing and proposals, we managed to get a long-term agreement with Ireland Aid for core funding for 5 years, from 1997 to 2002. And this was reliable funding. It enabled us to purchase some vehicles, a tractor, and get a lot of the initial infrastructure built at the school that we needed, tools and equipment, the office, the dining room, some staff housing, and water-related infrastructure, energy-related infrastructure. There's another little point that I'd like to touch on is communications and solar technology. I can vividly remember when a core aspect of my life revolved around the post office, envelopes and stamps, and that was an era which was difficult, and its passing is not to be regretted. But the rollout of wireless communications has really streamlined operations and made things easier to get done. The other thing I wanted to mention is that about 10 years ago, solar technology went on the PV side from being fairly expensive and not always reliable to being much, much more affordable and reliable. The solar panels got bigger, inverters became more reliable, MPPT charge regulators enable very rapid series connection of PV arrays with MC4 connectors. So what used to be an expensive, slow, tedious business which didn't produce a lot of power suddenly jumped to being far less expensive, far more reliable, and able to produce really good industrial levels of power for decentralized power production. Bethel Mission is a remote location, and until 2017, logistics were difficult. Our main supply point was Mohalisok, which was a 4-hour drive one way. In 2017, the government of Lesotho, after many, many years of hope, blessed us with construction of the Bethel Mission Bridge, which connects us to the main South Highway in Mount Morosi. So since 2017, our transport, communications, and supply situation has dramatically improved. And then to sum up, over all of these years since 1993, SDG 17 refers to partnerships for the goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. And Bethel BCDC has been blessed with having really hundreds of excellent small, large, individual, institutional partnerships over those years, which have helped us. We've run programs together, we've received some co-investment, and so on. And just to mention a few of them, there's the Canada Fund, there was the European Union Microprojects Fund, there was the Solon Foundation, which has contributed several small, timely grants to facilities improvement. And then there were individuals like Dennis Pekisi from ATS, Professor Malitsani, Dr. Thomas A. Lawand in Canada, Werner Weiss from Austria, many other individuals and agencies that we worked with and enabled us to start and projects. Right from the beginning, we had a strategy of self-reliance, and we had a strategy for sustaining ourselves through efficient business operations. And once we got ourselves off the ground, we had a lodge, we built a dining room and restaurant, we started a solar company, and we had a construction engineering capability that we were able to use to be able to go out and do jobs and generate revenue. In 2007, the school was effectively broke, but an opportunity came up to build resettlement housing at Storm Mountain Diamond Mine in Macau, which is a very long drive and distance from BBCDC, and it was just something we couldn't turn down. So instead of knocking on doors and looking for grants and funding in Maseru, we drove through and we set up camp at Storm Mountain Diamond Mine, and we worked there almost steady for 5 years and built an enormous swathe of infrastructure for the mine. Ran a lot of students through there in internships and developed the skills and capacity of some of the present staff. And we left there with a little bit of money. In fact, when we left Storm Mountain Diamond Mine in 2012, we had something like 200,000 maluti, and we were able to buy a brand new small truck to be able to start our solar business in Mohalisok and put it on a good footing. In 2014 began a long period of cooperation with AE Intec in Austria, and we're the partner for a program called Soul Train to promote the use of solar energy for thermal energy purposes. You know, globally, almost half the energy use is for low-grade thermal energy. So anywhere where we can substitute solar energy instead of fossil fuel combustion for heating, cooling, process heat in industry, and so on, we're decarbonizing our economy. So that was the purpose of Soul Train. And while Soul Train did not provide core funding for BBCDC, it was a valuable program financing some of the staff for many years and also enabling us to undertake investments in energy infrastructure and training facilities here at BBCDC. Again, when you look back at the reason why BBCDC has been able to survive and even grow over this long period of time is because of permaculture design and an emphasis on these core elements: solar energy, water, and food. I'll just go over these quickly. You know, we had a program for solar energy. We're off-grid here. As of today, BBCDC produces about 160 kilowatt hour of solar electricity each day, and we heat about 7,000 or 8,000 liters of hot water each day, which has a value of, I don't know, $3-4 500,000 maluti per year. And also there's an extensive system of solar cookers here on the campus, dryers, there's 3 greenhouses, there's dryers, there's many applications of solar energy in Lesotho, which is a wonderful sunny place, and this is providing value for the institution and saving us money. The other important strategic element which has enabled us to grow and survive all these years is, of course, water. And through landscaping, retention of storm water, recycling of gray and black water, and development of local water resources, we've been able to invigorate the local climate and also provide water for irrigation. Then when you come to food, right from the beginning, the campus was landscaped. It was divided into a much more complex farming system than you typically see of polycultures with gardens, orchards, forage crops, some wild areas, but with a very broad section of mixed orchard and fruit and nut trees that you have throughout the campus. And this has given us, again, an enormous economic and material benefit, which has saved us a lot of money over the years. Part of the history of BBCDC is going out on several really quite ambitious work assignments in remote areas. In 2014, we built a large orphanage in Yaholnitsky at St. Camilla's Mission. It was a successful project. We employed 20 students for almost a year. We got that job done. And then in 2018, 2019, we teamed up with FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and we built 3 water supply systems in villages at Budumutau, Hapatsad, Sequala, and Juana, the last being in Mokotlong. And in there we built groundwater sand dams, and we installed solar water pumping technology. And that was a successful project which garnered a lot of interest. And presently, we just a few weeks ago started another project in cooperation with the World Food Program to scale that program up. So we're building sand and groundwater dams in 3 communities. We're landscaping schools and installing some small household greenhouses for plant propagation and support for smallholder agriculture. Well, the school has grown over the last 35 years or so that it's been in operation. We started out with 4 staff members and 10 students, and then operations were fairly flat for 10 or 15 years, but then things began to pick up, and as I speak at the present, we're up to 300 students. Over the last 10 years, we've been graduating close to 150 students each year, and our staff complement has grown now with current work for the World Food Program to 35 or 40 employees. BBCDC is building on a good foundation. In 2015, the international community adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. This was something that BBCDC immediately jumped on and aligned itself with. We are in a sprint for 2030 to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable development is, again, it's about reducing the risk and stress of civilization. Big thinkers have understood this from the early 1950s to 60s, that we were on trajectories which were unsustainable. It means that we're polluting the earth, using up water, soil, and other resources faster than they could be replaced, and also creating conditions of human life which are fundamentally inconducive to happiness. The architect Christopher Alexander, he speaks about the awakening of space, and I think the new paradigm is decentralization, using these wonderful tools that we have, solar energy, design, permaculture, patterning, to create a model of economic and social prosperity which is not tied to urban concentration and huge industrial development, as we've known since the early years of the Industrial Revolution, where we depended on mining, heavy industry, life in very, very large cities with commuting, tenements, and all of this associated human stress. So I think there's a place for us to keep on working hard and forging a path to a much better future.